Mastering frame control in a structured way, video 2, let's jump in. Today we're gonna talk about 6 different levels of frame control moves, or rather 6 steps on a frame control ladder. If you haven't watched video 1, I highly suggest you do that first, because before you learn how to control the frame, how to react to these frame control questions that you sometimes see on dates or when approaching girls, you have to understand what is and what isn't frame control. There are 3 main types of frame tests. There are the active frame tests, AFTs, there are frame traps, and there's frame filtering. And you have to understand how they differ one from another, because they each require completely different reactions or responses. If you have done that, then well, let's start talking about the frame control ladder. The big mistakes guys are making when it comes to frame control or reacting to frame tests are they're either not reacting enough, not handling these situations at all, they're staying on level 1 of the frame control ladder or step 1, or they're going straight to the heavy moves, drawing strict lines, setting strict boundaries. It's like a my way or highway, even kicking girls out of the apartment, etc. And sometimes they're staying on the step 1 for a very long time until they get really pissed off, and then they jump straight to step 6 and draw these strict lines. That is because they don't know how to gradually, softly handle these frame tests step by step, kind of starting with softer moves and then slowly going to heavier and heavier and heavier ones if you see that the soft ones aren't really working. And this isn't just about women, this is about people in your life in general. Let's say someone in your life is doing something you don't really agree upon, you don't like them doing that, but sometimes people don't do anything about these things, about kind of people maybe accidentally or intentionally offending them, kind of doing these things, and they don't do anything for so long, then at one point they just become really pissed off and they snap at these people. Because they simply didn't know how to address these issues earlier, or they didn't wanna, offend or confront the other person. Here you'll learn how to do that in a natural way, step by step, starting by some light moves like even non-reactivity, and then slowly moving up to more dominant and aggressive ones. If you ever get pissed about girls' behavior, it's most likely because you didn't know how to handle it when she started doing it, or you started paying attention to it too late. By that time, you probably already wanted to aggressively call out her behavior or even kick her out of your apartment because it had gotten out of hand, or it's because you didn't start reacting to her behaviors when she first started doing them. You basically let it go out of hand. In almost all cases, you can handle these situations before they start, or at least before they get out of control, starting with softer moves and then over time with stronger and stronger ones. If you do this correctly, you will have very, very rare cases where you have to draw strict boundaries or tell a girl to leave your apartment. So let's look at 6 levels of St. Robert frame control ladder. It's important to understand that not all of these levels can be applied to all situations, but I'm still going to explain all 6. And then in the next video, we're going to look at how to apply them to each different type of frame control situation you might end up in. If you have watched the free dating courses on daygamecourses.com, then you know exactly how to start escalating physically from a socially acceptable touch, like checking out her accessories, her tattoos, comparing hand sizes and similar things, to more kind of man-to-woman escalation, slowly moving towards a kiss. But then when you put your hand on her leg, which is one of the moves in the escalation sequence, she pulls that leg away. What do? Nothing. The first step on the frame control ladder is simply not reacting at all. You keep the date going and try another move of the same level 10 minutes later. To not waste time, we won't go over the moves in this video. You can learn all about them by checking out the free dating courses on daygamecourses.com. Both basic and advanced versions are available there. Non-reactivity is the best approach in almost all situations, except when she asks you a question. In that case, oftentimes the first move you'll go to is Agree and Amplify. This is a simple one. For example, she asks you something along the lines, how old are you? How tall are you if you are on a shorter side? Do you do this all the time? Do you usually go out with younger girls, etc.? Or she says something not too nice about things you do. Maybe you play soccer and she says she doesn't like soccer. Or you're shorter and she says something like, yeah, I don't usually date shorter guys. The mistakes? Well, to these kind of serious questions, how old are you? Do you usually do this all the time? Do you usually date younger girls? Guys usually answer with very serious answers. They're having like serious conversations about this, which doesn't increase attraction, doesn't make her more comfortable with you. It doesn't really achieve anything. It just moves the conversation to a more serious direction. Or when a girl says something negative about whatever, soccer, how tall you are, or whatever, guys kind of snap and become kind of overly reactive, whereas you can be much more lighthearted about all of this. And I have a bunch of examples written down. Oh, for example, she asks you, how old are you? You can say, I'm 97, I have a very good plastic surgeon. Next time, I'm getting a boob job. An important thing here is don't go too low with the number. You have to say something ridiculous because let's say you're 40 and you say you're 63. Well, maybe you're a good-looking 63-year-old. She might actually think it's true. So you have to say something ridiculous. This is a classic response to this question. Everyone knows it. Everyone uses it. It works great. Do you do this all the time? Yeah, of course, you're number 487 today. And again, make sure the number is ridiculous, because if you say you're number 100 today, that could as well be true. She asks you, how tall are you? And you're on a shorter side. Say something like, right, if you ever go out for a drink, I'll need to bring a ladder with me. Or you're playing soccer and she says she doesn't like soccer. Well, you can say something along the lines, yeah, right, it's 22 adult men running around the field and kicking ball around. Do you do any sports? This is an important nuance. You have to always bring it back to her. She gives you this frame test. You do your response to how old you are. Do you do this all the time? Yada, yada, yada. But always change the topic. Bring it back to her. Otherwise, now the conversation topic will be how tall are you? How old are you? You know, soccer being or not being weird. So make sure you always bring it back to her. In case of soccer, you can kind of bring it back by asking, does she do any sports? What type of sports does she do? Or something similar. Third step on a ladder, calling it out in a jokingly way. Maybe she's asking you a lot of weird questions and you're answering them with Agree and Amplify, and then you also give the real response at the end, which is, by the way, fine. But she kind of keeps asking these weird questions non-stop. Or maybe you're escalating and she's all the time stopping you, behaving super shy. So these two moves, they don't work. The first and second level, the first and second step on the ladder, they don't work. So you have to move to something a bit more aggressive. And a great thing to do is call it out with a bit of a kind of humorous twist. You put your hand on her leg and she pulls the leg away. You try again 5 to 10 minutes later. Same thing, and then a little later on a date, you do a different move. For example, you put your hand on her back, and again, she's stopping that for the third time in a row. Something isn't right, and it looks like non-reactivity isn't gonna cut it anymore. So it's time to call her out. You can say something like, you're so shy, this reminds me of the dates when I was 16 years old. It's kind of cute, I like it. We're actually using a little bit of a push-pull motion here. You're pushing her away by saying, oh, you're so shy, this reminds me of dates when I was 16. Push. It's kind of cute, I like it. And then we pull her back in. This is really good if you're older than her and she really, really likes you. She might have a realization that she's not out on a date with another 19-year-old. She's out with a successful adult man who's used to going out with amazing women. You're used to different things. You're used to more mature women. After all, you're such a great guy. You probably have a bunch of other options. Oh my God, what if you don't like her? Sometimes a girl will stop escalation because it is too fast for her and she's not comfortable with it. But other times it's simply because she's not supposed to do that, or she's a little shy. If it is indeed too fast for her, calling it out won't work and you will need to build more attraction and comfort. But if she is simply worried about what you'll think, or she's a little bit shy, it's highly likely that now all of a sudden she will open up. Again, let's not dive into techniques on how to escalate. This video is about techniques to overcome frame tests. You can learn everything about how to escalate and how to help her open up when she's back at your apartment on the free dating courses on daygamecourses.com. This technique can also be used if she keeps asking silly questions all the time, like I talked about in the first video, or does anything else all the time, especially if you feel she's doing it intentionally. Again, in the first video, I talked about this example of a girl who was specifically and intentionally teasing me in these situations. It's also a good idea to call it out with a little joke. Now we're moving towards more heavy artillery, and let's talk about doing a light push. You're back at your place and she has stopped your escalation multiple times. It is time to push her away. You need to push her away a little bit. A few ways you can do this is go to the kitchen and make yourself a cup of tea, simple as that, or pull out your phone and just, ping all the other leads you have, or do something else on your phone for a minute or two. I've done this to actually text my regulars and see whether there's anyone available that evening, and it's quite likely that the girl you're with will think that that's what you're doing. But a disclaimer, this only works if she really likes you, and if she does, this works really good because she is understanding that she's losing you because she's stopping the escalation all the time. She might not see you again if she decides to be a nice girl throughout the first date or whenever you get back at your place. This move works extremely well if you feel like she's baiting you with heavy makeouts and then stops you all of a sudden. The makeouts are hot, but it's obvious that the stops are intentional. This happens rare, but when it does, oftentimes it is intentional. If this happens and she's really doing that intentionally, you can usually feel that. Stop doing the makeouts, stop all the escalation, and if she's coming in to make out again, stop her. Don't let her do that. Take the power away from her. Such a push when you don't let her come in for yet another makeout if you feel like she's doing this intentionally goes well with calling it out with a little joke as well, the previous step. But you have to be pretty strict about drawing the line, setting the boundaries here. But remember, it is not verbal. You're not saying, oh, you're just teasing me and then intentionally stopping. Like, you're never saying things like that. You're simply stopping the escalation, you're stopping the makeouts, and you don't let her initiate another one for a little bit until you're back in control of how these things happen. And now we're on to some really heavy moves. The freeze out. Freeze outs don't happen often. They're very similar to the previous move, but instead of pushing her away and giving her a space for like a minute or two, you do it for a little longer, let's say 5 minutes. I know a guy who literally stood up, turned on his computer and started playing video games. This is crazy. I've never done a push that wild, but it worked for him, and I've heard similar things working for other guys. Or what I did, remember in the first video I told you about the girl who kept teasing me with these heavy makeouts, stop and go, intentionally teasing me this way, and then she had her head laying on my lap and she was rubbing my crotch with the back of her head. And then when we were going into the makeouts, we went to the bedroom and it was sort of on, but then she's stopping it again. I think she was almost naked, maybe in her underwear, but she kept doing this on off thing. And at one moment I realized, okay, she's really doing this intentionally. This isn't going anywhere. She knew that I really don't like that. I had drawn boundaries before, and once she did it again, I simply stood up, I took my shirt, and I walked out of the room back to the living room, leaving her alone in the bedroom. Did it work? Partially. She called my bluff. A few minutes later, I saw that she's getting out of bed and putting on her shirt. So I was like, oh shit, what do I do now? And then I had to go back in, try again, but I had to pull out the heaviest move, this level 6 move, Royal Flush. I went back in the bedroom and she asked me, oh, where did you go? What happened? And I simply said, well, you're just playing games. We're not little kids. She apologized. She said she's not gonna do it again and pulled me back in the bed. We started super heavy makeout. And then she pushed me away for even a brief second doing that move again. And I instantly stood up ready to walk out, and I wouldn't have walked back in. And as I'm standing, I'm just like, oh, sorry. I'm not gonna do this again. And a minute later, or maybe even less, we were fucking. Royal flash basically means an extremely strict line. You're playing games, I don't want to do this anymore, or we're playing games, I'm not a kid anymore, you should leave. I've never done such an aggressive royal flash where I tell a girl to leave, but as I said, I walked out of the room, I've said we're playing games, I completely stop all the flirtiness, escalation and everything until she starts behaving. Does it mean she will behave? No, because sometimes she just wasn't ready to have sex, or maybe she was kinda emotionally she wanted to do that, but she has really strict upbringing, she knows it's not right, so she's having this inner battle with herself. Sometimes you can't overcome that, other times she wants to tease you, she's getting off on that teasing, and she knows she's not gonna sleep with you that day, she's just gonna keep teasing you. And then it's a good idea to just pull the royal flash, not do that, maybe stop all the escalation, go either watch something together or just do something else, or just end the date then and there. Sometimes there is nothing you can do. Even royal flash won't work. But there is an important disclaimer or a warning I want to put out there. Royal flash was something that Tom Torero made popular, but he also later admitted he has stopped using it. When you're going out all the time and you're getting dates all the time and you're getting laid all the time, at one point you could become entitled. Any obstacles start simply pissing you off. You know that you could go on another day in a day or two and get laid with a different girl, and there's a good chance that you would actually get laid with this girl. So why deal with all the obstacles this girl is putting up? You become impatient, start reacting more aggressively to all these frame tests. You go straight from non-reactivity to maybe strong freeze-outs, drawing the boundaries, royal flash. You become lazy and entitled. Tom Torero talked about how this happened to him. It has happened to me, and if this ever happens to you, it's a good idea to pause and re-evaluate what day game and dating means in your life and what do you actually want to get out of this, because obviously what you're doing at that moment isn't really bringing you pleasure anymore, and all you care is about getting laid. You're not really enjoying the process anymore. So maybe the goals you set in day game aren't what you currently want anymore. If on the other hand you keep going down the same path without changing your attitude, it can lead to some very negative and toxic attitudes and behaviors in dating. And the last thing I want to mention about royal flash is guys oftentimes use royal flash because they simply don't know the other moves. It's like they just didn't want to confront the girl. They didn't want to kind of start with these smaller moves, and then by the time they're reacting, they don't know other things they could do and they go straight to the heavy moves just because they're pissed off. This is why learning good frame control is so important. Understanding these 6 levels and learning when exactly to use which moves will help you tremendously, both in day game sets, over texting, on dates, and when you're escalating back at your place, actually even when you're building relationships with your regulars. So in the next video, we will look at how to implement these steps in the typical day game and dating scenarios you will find yourself in. When I finish this video series, I'll put together a short PDF cheat sheet where I'll summarize the most important points about how to overcome frame tests and put together a list of the best solutions for the typical frame control situations, typical frame tests you'll see in dates and in day game. When I get questions about frame tests from the guys I am coaching, questions that I haven't addressed in the next video or in this PDF cheat sheet, I will edit the cheat sheet and add them in there. I want it to be a good resource you can always pull up on dates and kind of see, oh, she did this, this is how I solved this. So whenever you are on a date, whenever some frame tests happen, you can always take a quick bathroom break, pull out your phone, pull out the PDF cheat sheet, and it's like, hey, she keeps asking me, do I always go out with younger girls? She keeps talking about age gap. How do I handle this? To make sure you get the cheat sheet when I publish it, click on the link in the description. It will take you to a sign-up sheet for my sign-up page for my mailing list, and as soon as I put together the cheat sheet, it will land in your email inbox, or maybe it's already finished and it will instantly be in your inbox. That's it for this video. See you next time. Ciao, guys.